Welcome, everyone. We are back here again at Awaken Your Inner Genius. And this time we are starting with Unit 2, Lesson 5. And so I want to once again welcome everyone here on the panel. We have Jim and Jackie, both 50 and 45-year students of the message. We have Karen Elkins, who is the editor of Science to Sage, has been studying the Russell work for 13 years. We have John Bonzel, who has been the former president of the University of Science and Philosophy, more importantly, a student for 50 years, lived with Leo for 2 years, along with Jim. And we have Ken Pearson from California, a 30-year student with the Russell work. So welcome everyone here. We are, it's hard to believe we're here into our second month, and we want to say a gracious thank you to all of our subscribers. We are up to 184 subscribers. And what is a real joy as well is that when we look at the numbers for the show, we have people that are staying on for the whole show. And so that's great news. The format is this. This is all based on the home study course for Walter and Leo Russell. You can see the link below if you're watching this later. Before we go into a couple of the mechanics for our time together here, our conversation together here, let's go ahead and just get ourselves settled and tune in. We selected some ocean music today to tune into for our meditation. So if we could. And as you're tuning in to these ocean sounds, know that it's actually very symbolic of the universal heartbeat. It's about the in-breath and the out-breath. And as you're breathing in and becoming very, very relaxed here in this moment, I want you to imagine how that wind feels on your skin, how the soothing sound of the ocean feels inside of you as you begin to breathe out. We want you to, for this moment, we'd like you to let go of everything else that's been in your world. Tune into this universal heartbeat. Accept the gift of love that is being given here this evening with all of those that are part of this conversation. And feel the vastness as we'll begin to talk about the three omnis throughout this course. Understanding the vastness that nature represents. And that the message, so much of what the Walter and Leo Russell talk about, that the power can also be found there in nature is representative. So may this ocean bring you peace. And breathe in. And as you breathe out, I'd like you to think about that sun. Not quite so hot, but a cool breeze on your skin. Relaxing in this moment, taking you inside with the understanding that everything you need to know is right there inside of you. And when you find yourself centered, feel free to open your eyes and come back to this moment here for Awaken Your Inner Genius. All right. A gracious thank you to everyone that's here. A couple of things before we start Unit 2. I wanted to show you where we're going for the next 5 weeks. And so we're pulling up here on the screen a look at July. And while I know this is the last day of June, we did go ahead and make a choice to start Unit 2. And so you're welcome to take a screenshot right here. You'll have an idea of how this month is going to unfold. And we actually have some pretty exciting topics. And John, I know we love talking about Walter Russell and Leo Russell's illumination. And so for me, that's a highlight of this for Unit 2. Is that for you?
Oh, yes. My favorite.
So if you'll just take a look at this, wanted you to see it. And then what we decided to do is for each week, we want to bring some kind of inspiration for the week. And so whether it's that's going to be one of Walter Russell's artwork, or whether it's going to be something else in the world that we think we need to bring forward, we wanted to show you this right quick, the inspiration of the week. And you heard us refer to this particular painting this particular illustration last week. And it is the wave. And I wanted to ask John if you would just comment on this. And then I've got another picture on the following screen, but I wanted everybody to really tune in to what is the significance of this work, John.
You mean this wave right here, Kimberly? That's on my phone?
That's on your phone?
Every time I pick it up, I see the wave?
There you go. There you go.
Well, we don't need to get too complicated here, but just know that this is the first scientific painting that Walter Russell did when he came out of his illumination. And this hung on the walls there at Swannanoa Palace forever. And the caption was, "In the wave lies the secret to creation." And there's a lot there staring at you. And as we progress in this program and these teachings, it'll come to you a little bit at a time. So we won't overload you up front, but just know in its magnificence that this is what I think is one of Doctor's greatest paintings.
This is one of the images that I actually meditate to a lot when I am there with Walter Russell's work. And we'll show you in the next slide in just a moment of what it even looks like there on someone's living room, because a lot of people have many of these scientific drawings there all over their homes. And you can take a screenshot of this and study a little bit more detail about it. But when we brought it up last week, Ken has it there behind his shoulder, as you will see. Ken, you look like a Pinterest picture right there. With your wave right over your shoulder. So
you want to wave at us, Ken?
I think he's on mute. He's on mute. All right. So we wanted to go ahead and flash back. If Ken will come off mute, so we'll have him ready. I wanted to go ahead and flash back before we start Unit 2. As one of the newer students here on the panel, I was going back and we said that this is a home study course. That is the way Walter and Leo designed it. And we do as much as we can to help guide you each week to encourage to what you would read. But we wanted to go flash back to Unit 1. And I wanted to go back to an image that for me as a newer student, I thought was very, very important to the foundation of the work. So we're going to show you on the screen. You don't have to go back and get your Unit 1 right now. We're going to show you on the screen. I'm going to ask our long-term students to describe what this is, the idea of concentration and decentration, and then Karen has a gift for us. So why don't we start with Jim? Jim, what's your thought?
Well, I like the first, I like figure 1 and figure 2 the most for me. Because they are, to me, exactly what we all go through every day of our lives. We awaken in the morning, recharged, body recharged from our breaths and heartbeat throughout the night. We're full of vim and vigor. Your feet hit the floor and off you go, except for those that need a strong cup of coffee. But you get there. You got the concept. And by the end of the day, your energy's low, your focus is waning, you might even be a little bit grouchy. And you must rest and recharge this vehicle that you're walking around in. So we call it sleep. And we do that all the nights and days of our lives, over and over again. Concentration, charge the battery. Decentration, use up the battery. Go back, plug in to sleep and recharge the battery. But always be aware that your consciousness is universal and it never sleeps.
Okay, I love that, Jim. Thank you. John, what do you want to add to that conversation? Because for me, it took me a little while, to really get this part of my regular thought system. So I wanted to be sure we spend a moment so that way our dear students that are following along with us, Linda and Darcy and Bonnie and Dee and many others to come, can really, really internalize this. So what's your thought, John? And then I'm going to Ken.
Well, let's simplify this for our audience. Okay. The universe, the physical universe, the manifested universe is a two-way expression. You wind up and you unwind. That's it. So the painting, the wave painting that you we had up earlier, okay, is representative of this. All right. And that's all that takes place throughout the universe. So whether it's on a personal level or a galactic level, universal level, cosmic level, whatever you want to say, this process is the same, unchanging, unvarying. And so then these lessons are going to guide you as to how to use this two-way universe, this two-way process to your benefit and to the benefit of all humanity.
All right. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. So Ken, do you want to add anything? And then Jackie, I'll give you a moment before we hand it over to Karen.
Only thing that I like what John was talking about is it's that simple. It's a clock spring is what that represents. The winding of a toy that you wound up when you were a kid, and you unwind it, and the spring unwinds to give motion. And for me, in terms of meditation and concentration and decentration are an imperative part. We're also instructed to do it at night. All throughout the day, we want that decentrative state, that ability. That's your emotions should be in there. I feel like when I get wound up in life at 70,000 thoughts, I'm in figure 1, right? I'm just going too much. I'm tired. I'm wound. I might be grumpy, like Jim was talking about. I might be a little moody, but if I can unwind and learn to just relax a little bit, not be so concentrated, not so grilled, then I can back off and allow things to be what they need to be. And then more comes to me in terms of the better way to handle situations, solutions. But when I'm wound super tight like that, I don't get answers. I do that. But now if I was going into meditation, I'm going to think about the things I want to I want to commune with God about. And when I go into communion, I'm going to unwind that spring to get to God, because God's not the tight part. God's in the unwound part to me. And that would be the decentrative half, where when I decentrate, when the answers come, they may come throughout the day. They may come in that moment. There may be a feeling. It may be intuition. But I'll rest assured the answer is already there, as Kim illustrated when we first opened up. Everything's inside of us.
All right. So we're going to continue with this because Jackie, anything you want to add before I have Karen show how she brought this to visual?
I remember reading in lesson 5 about giving and re-giving. It's like the Creator gives in concentration, and we re-give in decentration, or all of nature does. So I kind of looked at it like the giving, re-giving aspect of the wave, the universal law.
All right, I love that. Now, Karen, you are our visual genius here. So you took this as the one who is going through the home study course for the first time. And how did you interpret it? And so what did you want to say to the seasoned students before we show this?
Visual. I went through it as what nature does, because we're part of nature, but how it goes through that and how it's light. And then I went through a lot of other Walter Russell's work, because before you sent me the image, I was scanning thinking I knew what you were talking about. So I actually have an amalgamation of how this flows into a lot of his other things, but I've overlaid some things and made things move. So that was how I interpreted it. So you'll see as I go. It has to do with nature's recycling system as well.
All right, so let's roll the video. We'll see what gift Karen brought for us today.
I'm the student who's trying to visualize. So anything that I did wrong with the big boys over there, you get to say, Karen? Well,
I told you.
You told me. You didn't test me yet. So you just, anyway, so if there's a need to be any correction, I'm all up for it.
All right, let's roll. James is pulling up that particular video. And then we'll have John comment on that in just a moment. James, are we good? All right, Karen. My goodness. Wow. All right.
Very good. Very good. Very well done.
Well, it was a quick one from last night. It was like, how fast can I figure this out? What could I put in? And I kept grabbing. So hopefully, seeing your students, did I do okay?
Yes, beautiful. You can come back next week.
We're still trying to figure some of it out.
Part of what I love about what Karen does is Karen is one of the most integrative conceptual women that I have ever met. She has the ability to take just a few things, and like I asked her for one image, and look what she did. Boom, boom. I mean, she just was able to bring it all in. And so I'm just going to ask each one of so John, I'm going to go from John, Jim, and then Ken. What do you want to say to what Karen just showed?
Well, what Karen showed us was a repetition of what takes place in the creating universe. And it's very simple. There's a winding up, there's a winding down. And I'm so proud of her because she had the color sequence correct.
Yeah.
If you guys saw the red and the blue lines. So red is male for compression, the electric side of the wave. And the female was the blue, the unwinding, the magnetic side of the wave. And then there was a couple instances there where you could see, and you'll find this later on in the teachings, that everything in the universe is trying to turn itself inside out. And that's the purpose of the unwinding and the winding up. And if you go back to the wave painting, you can see it demonstrated there. So try not to overcomplicate it, but I think Karen did a wonderful job there.
All right. So more and more of this is going to make sense to some of our newer students. So just take these things in and just allow what comes to you. I'm going to bring something up to this point in just a minute. But Jim, if you would comment, and then Ken.
On Karen's piece?
On Karen's piece, yes. Anything you want to bring up?
It was lovely and absolutely correct in its presentation.
Yahoo!
We want to see Karen cheering herself on. There you go.
Matter of fact, I believe Jacqueline Porter is demonstrating the wave, the spiraling in, and the spiraling out right there.
Look at her necklace.
Oh, that's my bad.
There you go.
Do you know that the wave is also the golden ratio?
Yep.
Yes.
The winding, yes, the spherical, centripetal, and centrifugal is the golden ratio at the same time that we all talk about in nature. That is everything. And what I really like about that is that it's really a hard concept to think everything is light, right? But if you think about it, I think Karen exemplified it really beautiful with the eyeball. And the fact that how does that mountain fit in your eye? How does that telephone pole, that tree you walk by? How does that TV, how does that furniture in your front room, how does that all fit in your eyeball? It doesn't. So the only way in is through light, because the eyes only sense vibrational motion, which is another way of saying reflective particle lights, which is another way of saying matter, right? Everything is light. If you think about it, because you have to condense it all down to that point in your eye. That's a measureless point. Science cannot pinpoint anywhere in the pupil where everything comes in. Yet Karen did such a great job of exemplifying that we are light, that all there is light. And that's how you can know it's all light, because how does it all fit in my eyeball if it's not light?
I love that. And, I'm going to ask James to bring up the image for page 63 right quick, because I want to have just two life stories, because part of what we're working hard to do is making this very relevant. So one of the things that you saw, John.
That was for you, Ken. I was keeping an eye on you, buddy.
I got you, baby. I got you, man.
You get points for the eyeball, John. So one of the things, Ken and I just recently visited the Luray Caverns in Virginia. And one of the things that we noticed, literally seeing that the concentration and the decentration there, even within the formations of Luray Caverns. And that was actually shown in what Karen just showed, which is really cool. But John, you have an especially funny story, because I tried to highlight that the yellow was kind of concentration when you come into something, and the green was when you go out. You had your own personal test with just what happens to the power of light when it concentrates, and I thought everybody might get a kick out of that.
Well, You know, God has a sense of humor, in case you didn't know that. Okay. So I just happened to have a big, beautiful 10-inch crystal ball in my living room. And especially in the winter, the sun comes in, and I had the octave wave painting in behind my crystal ball. And if you were to move left or right, and I think most of the panel has seen it, and you can see the wave in action without something ever not moving. So anyway, I left my house that morning, and I came back and I noticed, oh my God, there was a hole burned in the cosmic wave painting. So that was God reminding me. He said, look, you know, I concentrate my waves when it comes to a focal point. So I was like, thank you, God. I won't do that again.
Yeah, except that you did. And then the next one, John, let's go ahead and fess up, because you did test it again.
And I asked you to bring me extra copies of that.
because it decentrated, the light decentrated it and literally burned something. And James and Jim was like, John, you got to put something over the crystal ball or you're going to burn the house down. So anyway, here we are having Russell students having some fun with everyday things. Karen, a gracious thank you. Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm just noticing Darcy's mentioning something about the Fibonacci spiral. And when you look at the Fibonacci, it comes out of the golden ratio, and the electrical discharge, which is in the electric universe, it actually cascades down in that Fibonacci sort of sequence, but it spirals from the golden ratio. So it's all interconnected, and that you always see the pictures of the rabbits multiplying. Well, that's how electrical discharge actually also multiplies. Same sequence. You'll see it in your hands and your body from here to here to here. So your hands are even a third to here to here. So it's all discharged that way. So there's your electric universe.
All right, so here you go. Let's go ahead then. So thank you, everyone. We want to just bring that part, the flashback from Unit 1. What we are planning to do, I'm going to go ahead and have us dive into Unit 2. So I would like to ask Ken to get ready on the bottom of page 75. We're going to show that in just a moment, but we are going to do something around the top of every half hour. We are going to show a quote of the quote of the week, so to speak, and then give you a quick few minutes to take a quick bio break or go get some water, because we had people saying they didn't want to leave their seats. So we're going to try to do that around top of the hour, but right now let's go ahead and dive into Unit 2. And where do you want to go on that bottom of page 75?
75. I will 75. So we're into the forward. Okay. Sorry. Excuse me. Sorry. Power prayer. 75. So today we wish to supplement. Well, you know, this is the misnomer, the dispelling of what people think prayer is, right? And the more fervent I pray to God, oh, please, God, heal me, take away this pain, my suffering, my grieving, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, man, it's like God's state of mind is a perpetual state of ecstasy. There's not that whimpering, crying, oh, my poor little boy, let me give you a hug kind of stuff. It's love. I give you unconditional love. What more would you want, right? From anybody, especially your creator and that divine creative spark inside of each and every one of us. Love is within. It's not without, but in order for us to tap into it within, to tap into it through prayer and to get there through prayer, it's the soul felt prayer that I believe really connects to our creator, is when it comes from my soul. Like, right, you know, I know when I'm coming from my heart. And man, it's like John said, God's got a great sense of humor. Right? You know, I know when I'm coming from my heart. And man, it's like John said, God's got a great sense of humor. Right? You know, I know when I'm coming from my heart. And man, it's like John said. I like hearing my voice, just not that much.
Yeah. All right. So there's obviously a lag somewhere in the thing. So I just want to bring our attention to what I had highlighted at the bottom. It says, prayer is the mightiest of man's powers, for through prayer, if understood and rightly used and accompanied by action, that Ken was just talking about, man may have anything he desires, attain the loftiest heights, or extend his powers to others for their exaltation. And so I'm going to ask John, as we go over here to page 76, there's a few things that are highlighted. And John, I'm going to ask you to pull out what you'd like to, because this is where that in the home study course, they actually include some excerpts from the Divine Iliad, the messages of the Divine Iliad, which might be helpful to explain to any of our new students what that is.
If I may, Kimberly,
Please.
I'd like to reference something back on page 75
Sure.
and what you just read. And it was interesting. Ken and I had a great conversation this morning about this exact topic. And we were talking about, Eastern philosophies. All right. And they do a great job, with meditation. And they do a great job with prayer. But sitting in a cave for years, trying to find nirvana, right, without putting your desires in action, nothing's happening. It's a waste of time. And that's the beauty of this course, that it will step by step walk you through how to accomplish that which you desire. But you got to do your part.
Yeah.
God's part's guaranteed. Yours is the only one that's in question. So I just wanted to
Okay.
to
Well, and I
reference
want to respectfully respond to that before you go to page 76. So I wouldn't necessarily myself personally say it's a waste of time, as much as I would say that even yesterday I was hearing a speaker talking about the power of the home study course by Walter and Leah Russell. He was a Zen master, and he was saying he agreed with you that it was that the home study course was a lovely pathway to be able to bring this kind of work and be very practical about it, which I thought was really impressive. So I think we all are on different journeys, and for me, I was most excited that there are so many belief systems out there that I think the Russell work supports and even expands. Is that fair?
I think you can integrate anything.
It's the opposite.
John? Yes, go ahead.
I would say it's the opposite. They don't support the Russell. They don't support this message. The message supports.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Now, I was saying that for anybody, any other belief systems, I think with the Russell work would find that their beliefs, their desire and connection with the Creator even expands, doesn't constrict. I don't see it as a, when I was brought up in the Southern Baptist world, it was you were not to talk about anything else. You do not study anything else. I mean, I literally, when I was young, and I started to study other books, I literally had to take my paperback covers off of my New Age books and put on my old Christian book covers on those books so everybody wouldn't give me a hard time. I was incognito. Literally.
Well,
Jim.
what does Leo mean? John or Kim? Where does Leo come from? Where does Leo's name come from?
Leatsu.
That's Zen, isn't it? It's already there.
Yeah.
That's it. And so, that's so important to realize that this is the foundation, and in order for it to be a proper foundation, you can build anything you want with it and from it, but it is the foundation. It is not work. Other modalities do not accept or work with this. In other words, it's denominated. This isn't denominated. That's the beauty of this.
Yes.
Matter of fact, one of the greatest people that Leo knew was Old Danino. How do you say it, John? We were talking about him earlier.
Who's this now?
Oldino. Remember, he was with Leo. Oldino. He was the guy from another country.
You're talking about Okilo. Melford Okilo.
I'm sorry. Odino and Okilo are a little bit off. They're a little slight. I get where they would be a little bit confusion. Sorry.
All right. So, John,
but Okilo was important. And the reason it was important is because that was an Eastern philosopher coming here, quite frankly, to meet with Leo and learn and bring this message back to his country so that others could be exposed to this message, because it is a full spectrum message. And that's the beauty of this illumination and why it's so profound. It's so hard to even comprehend that this guy had, Walter had an illumination, that Leo was a 360-degree illuminated, and what that even means. I just only want to just make it clear that it's not something that I think anybody's going to ever understand. This is a way of life, and it's understood that it's a way of life, but it's always alive, right? And that's why the scientific prayer, I just want to add this to scientific prayer. That's how I'm coming to this, is that prayer is constant communion. That's the idea, is that I'm in communion right now on this podcast with divine, my divine, I'm in communion. Let me hear what you'd have me hear. Let me say what you'd have me say. One last thing on scientific prayer that I really love is like, you know, they taught me, and these readings have taught me that when I go to God, my divine team, I go to creation for something. What am I offering, right? What am I offering in exchange? In order for it to be a giving and re-giving, which is the principle of the pistons of life, I got to offer. What am I going to offer my creator in return for what I'm asking for? That's the big conundrum to me.
Well, and that's actually where we're going, John. On page 76, you'll see that I actually highlighted that in the middle of the page on page 76. And you'll see, you know, you mentioned the Divine Iliad, and then you'll see that highlighted statement before that talking about what you give equally. So can you bring your wisdom to this page?
I will. Would you like me to read or just comment?
Whichever your heart says, dear.
By the way, I just wanted to add something to Ken's statement, that if you'll just give up 10% of your income, then God will guarantee the return on your prayers and meditation. So I just wanted to get that out there.
We'll bless you. We'll bless you. Yeah, just send it my way. I'll bless you all day long.
All right. Prayer.
Sorry.
Prayer is the most powerful thing in the universe. And once you know what prayer is, and like the Russell said, and how to use it, then you can start working knowingly with your creator instead of guessing or like, oh man, I wish I could do this or wish I could do that. Well, once you make this connection, once these teachings guide you as to how you want to do this, then life becomes a little more meaningful. Then you can get excited. Okay, so you can either work knowingly with God or unknowingly, and the choice is yours.
Well, and so, John, I want to mention, it says there in that highlighted statement, it says, in this promise is the key as to why prayers are not answered. God tells you very plainly that he will give you whatever you desire, but you must re-give equally by the action of service to God through nature. Notice that nature is capitalized, or your fellow man. And that's really a powerful concept, John. And I think it's something that can be misunderstood for so many people.
Right. It's not a one-way universe. It's a two-way universe. So if you're going to ask God for something, it's like, okay, well, you got to do your part. You got to give God something. You got to give nature something so that she can reveal herself to you. That's how I would explain that.
Okay. All right. So, Jim, I'm going to go over here to you to page 77, and for you to pull out whatever is important to your heart. I'm going to ask James, while you're talking there on page 77, is to pull up just a picture of the Divine Iliad. We do not focus on that particular book. That's the Early Whisperings. Let's go to a different one. Yes, the Divine Iliad. There it is. We don't focus on that necessarily for this particular conversation, the Awaken Your Inner Genius, because we focus on the Manu Taft and the Home Study course. But the Divine Iliad is an important, a hugely important foundation, bedrock that leads to everything else. So where do you want to go with us on page 77, Jim?
Well, the Iliads, I might say, are first communion between God and Dr. Russell. It's the message in its entirety given directly to him. Then he and Leo gave it to humanity in a more understandable form. Although I find reading the Iliads very inspiring. I always have. What I go to on page 77 is, until you balance your desire for peace by giving peace, or happiness by giving happiness, or prosperity by giving prosperity, your prayer will be voided by you yourself. And we all, as you move along and you on your path to your own personal awakening, you will begin to start to see people do this, including yourself. They will make a statement like this: God never answers my prayers. Well, that will never happen for me. Boy, I'll tell you, I don't know how that guy got rich, but I want everything he has. You notice these statements are negating the things that you want, not bringing them to your way. So you have the ability to manifest peace in your life. And one of the first things that we must all work on in our meditations is removing the negations of things when we pray, when we speak.
So let's focus on that for a moment, and then I'm going to have us take our first break with a quote. So right over here, when it actually talks about, I'm going to read this again because this is of vital importance, and this is what is shocking to me sometimes as I watch people. Until you balance your desire for peace by giving peace, or happiness by giving happiness, or prosperity by giving prosperity, your prayer will be voided by yourself. And so what's fascinating to me as we zoom in on that particular quote there is I will see a lot of very well-meaning people want to be able to move forward with their life. And on one hand, they're saying, many good things about their connection to the divine. And then in the next moment, the things come out of their mouth where it voids their own prayers. And so I'm curious what you would say about that. And I'm going to ask then John and Karen to comment before we take our first break. That first line, it says, until you balance your desire. What do you say to someone who might not understand that this two-way universe that you speak of means that you cannot say one thing in one breath saying the world is great, I want peace, please help me have these prayers, and oh, look at that SOB that just cut me off in the traffic light.
Let me give you a wonderful living example of what you just read. I'll never forget, we were in the palace, and Jim had a visitor to the palace late one evening and disrupted the entire palace. And so as the event unfolded, Jim left, Angela left, and I'm the only one standing there at the stairs of the baronial hall. And until you've been chewed out by a cosmic conscious illuminate, you don't know what getting chewed out is. And I mean, I took it. So I took one for Jim there. All right. He still owes me. He knows it. But what I'm trying to demonstrate, but in the following moments, Leo Russell leaned over that rail, reached down, grabbed me, and gave me the most wonderful, loving hug that you could ever imagine to balance that out. So that is what you just read in action.
Wow.
Because she could have let that go, and then there would have been what I call residue, right?
Right.
It would have been void. It wasn't voided yet, but she immediately voided, and and then everything was good. But I just wanted to try to give our audience a simple example of what you just read.
May I point out before we move on that I was 23 and I didn't know she was coming.
Let the record show. Oh, that is too funny. Okay, so here we're trying something new here for today. So just let us know. We are going to pull up a quote of the week, and we're going to put on some music. I want you to grab your phone, pull up your stopwatch, and we're giving everyone 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Go grab some water, stand up, get some oxygen, come back with us in 3 minutes because we have some great messages as we continue. So let us know how this works. We'll see you in 3.
You guys need to mute your mic.
Oh, thank you.
Right. If you're within earshot, if you begin to find your way back. In this day, in this virtual world here, it's always helpful to support ourselves as we learn and enjoy this ability to communicate online. So as we have the rest of our folks join back, actually perfect timing, because the quote that we had on was actually from page 78. And if we'll scroll down there to page 78 and scroll right there, you'll see the price of love is love. The price of greed is agony. So which one of our students wants to dive into that one? What does that mean?
Can we go back to page 77? Because I think that the last paragraph there is kind of, to me, was one that I really mind reading. It said, "Witness the nations which have tried to become powerful and prosperous, peaceful and happy by plundering other nations. Empires who have thus taken force without giving equally in exchange are heavily in debt on rations for every man killed in taking wealth and happiness away from for others. Let me reread that. That wasn't good, Karen. And for every man killed in taking wealth and happiness away from others or themselves, 10 have paid the price in blood and 1,000 in tears." And I think right now, when we're witnessing what's happening in the world, and there's such many things going on with power plays and things that we all need to be reckoning with, I think it's a good conversation, not necessarily to delve into at the moment, but to really recognize that it's not just our responsibility, but we as people within a nation need to be responsible and not just abdicate. We have to send out our love. We have to give out our love in the community. And we need to express it to the people who are, quote unquote, representing us. And they need to know how we feel. And so we can move forward in a more peaceful world. But that's my thought on that one. I thought that was an important one.
I completely respect that, Karen. Anybody want to add to that before we continue? Okay. All right. So, and that truly is very, very relevant. And that's part of what I love about the Russell work, is how practical and applicable it is. So when we talk about the price of love is love, that's really what Karen is talking about. If we want to live in a loving and peaceful world, then the price of that love is love. So who's going to dive into taking a shot at trying to explain what does that mean to someone?
Could you say that question again? I didn't quite understand.
So what does that quote mean, Jim? The price of love
I'll give it a shot.
of greed is agony.
Not giving love is agony. Well, it is. I think now that I'm in my mid-70s, the last thing I ever dwell on or think about is getting even, because that is the opposite of love. Forgiveness is the heart of love. So what that says to me is let it go. Forgive yourself any trespass that you feel you may have made. Forgive those who have trespassed against you, and just send out love. Now, and it's quite difficult to do that at first, because sometimes the people on the other side of the equation are still volleying balls across the net at you at high speed, even though you put your paddle down. So you might, those are the times that you want to take the time to concentrate your attention, or decentrate actually, to the love principle, created. Go back to self. Look at self. Look at the things that you've done throughout your life that you are not pleased with or happy with, at least that you're aware of. And look how you are totally, completely forgiven. No judgment. No, this is the most difficult thing to grasp. Judgment exists in the universal one only love. But what Karen and Kim have said earlier, reaction to your action is there. And it's reflected back to you in accordance to what you do, what you think, what you say. So to react to, I'm trying to simplify this for my own brain. To defend oneself against a physical action taken against you is natural universal law. I don't care how small the creature is, you poke your finger at it, it drops back on all fours and it's ready to protect itself. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about once the situation is resolved on your end and you're no longer being attacked or or mistreated, let it go. And by letting it go and loving, sending love out instead, you build a wall between you and the attacker. The attacker doesn't know how to deal with non-response. Most don't. I wish I could say it more clearly, but it's the most difficult thing to let go is I must get even. In reality, it's the easiest thing to let go of. I don't have to do a darn thing because what that other person reflected into the universe is coming home to them. What I do is pray for them that it be a gentle passing.
Ooh, that takes some serious courage and belief, doesn't it, though? Ken, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, I just wanted to read the paragraph. I thought that was great. Thank you, Jim. It's written here. You ask God to heal your body from its ills, which you yourself created by overeating or by giving vent to violent anger or by diverse acts which destroy normalcy of balance given you by God. It seems never to occur to you that you must re-give that which you asked for by eating properly, by substituting love for anger, or by cessation of the abuses which have caused your disorders. Such unbalanced conditions as anger or overeating or worry or excessive grief, yes, even loneliness and introspection will cause grave disorders. And those are just great examples of where we get out of balance. And that, right? When you walk, you never think about bringing, if your right leg goes first, you never think about bringing your left leg because it's a natural state to be balanced. And balanced is a normal state. That was something that took a while for me to register. Like, wow, normalcy is ecstasy. The state of normalcy is to have balance, to not feel upset, uptight, and actually feeling gregarious and lovingly is a normal state. That's normalcy, is to give love, believe it or not, in the universe that we live in. I found for me, I've given to so many for so many years, and I have been re-given. And people tell me like I'm the luckiest guy in the world. And one of my first mentors taught me that God's middle name was luck, right? I just got lucky. No, I just got God. I got God. And if I stay with God, I can stay in that balanced state. But I don't have the power to not get angry at that driver. I will tell you that. That guy cuts me off, man. If I'm not in that state and I'm not one with my creator, I'm not one with God in that moment, man, I'm telling you, I'm going to want to take him out and teach him how to drive and just get all wound up in that three-dimensional stuff and you're lost. And now God can't be there because God's not there, but I've cut myself off from God by entering into that unbalanced state. Balance is a normal state of God. So that's whenever we get out of balance, I believe for me that I've now lost my connection with God when I get out of balance.
So I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I want to ask everyone on the panel to comment this, because this is part of what our problem is here in humanity, is we have now started to call imbalances normal. So I'm going to ask each one of you, what is one? So Karen already brought up the fact that our accepting war is a significant unbalance. Why are we even accepting it? For me, it would be this acceptance that we have ill health. I've never believed that since I was a child. I've never accepted that. I've always known that divine perfect health was our birthright. And yet we are taught here in this reality that ill health is not. So John, what's an element of life that you have seen as an imbalance that we've all accepted as normal?
Well, I want to do a follow-up on Karen's statements earlier. And at the bottom of page 78, there's an underlined sentence which kind
Yes.
of
Yes.
says it all.
Go
We
down
fail to
further.
realize that the way to stop wars is to stop causing them.
Yes.
And the
Agreed.
cause is from unbalance, from wanting to take, and never give anything back. And that's the beauty. See, God's invisible universe. And as we move on in the lessons, the Russells will share with our audience the avoidance principle of nature. So that's why you can never, ever upset the balance of nature and of God. There's nothing you can do because of that avoidance principle. And man's got to learn how to do that. Or man's got to learn how to not put himself in that position or that situation where he has to avoid an unbalance.
So what would be an example, John, in your world that that's something that we've accepted as normal? What kind of imbalance?
Well,
I'll give you a minute to think about it. I'll come to Jim and
Yeah.
Jackie because because it's all around us. But this is part of why it's so hard for us to see is that we've accepted it as normal and it's not. Jim,
I can tell you where I think there's a total imbalance.
Okay.
Business is probably the greatest unbalanced arena I believe in life is corporate business world of get what you can from the customer, giving them as little, they're now charging the same price, but making the package just like 5% smaller so they can make 5% more, right? Instead of 5% bigger without telling you, they're making it 5% shorter without telling you. That kind of imbalance we think is normal. That's just business. Kill or be killed, kick or be kicked, and there's no truth in that at all. I think John is a great testament to that in terms of how he created a dynamic business by just giving.
Love that. Love that. Jim, Darcy says we take apart effects of unbalanced thinking and then call them normal. Absolutely, Darcy, you're right. Jim, what's another example, Jim or Jackie?
Well, I see it is so abundant about me right now. There are those that give to light, give service and love. And unfortunately, actually, there's a lot of them, but unfortunately, very few are seen and known for the work that they do. That's the love principle in action. It's very powerful when it comes from the individual. It's very powerful when you take that love principle and you go to the things and the actions that you see people doing around you that are unbalanced and hurtful and hateful and greedy and all of the other names that go with it. And you bless them from within the God light of their soul. You send them light and love that they might listen to that internal voice. That's your greatest power. Then your secondary power is to communicate with those that would represent your interest, that you are not in agreement with the path that they were taking, not judging them. Just, I do not agree with the path you're taking, whether that's your local representative or someone in Washington, D.C. And right away people go, oh, that's just an exercise in futility. No, it's not, because you're embodying the thought. And you're sending a thought of love from within, and you're sending a thought of how to resolve the issue from without, not judgment. So yes, we need to communicate with the divine within. We need to communicate with the divine within those that are lost and making unbalanced and destructive decisions. Then we need to forgive them for being lost and ask them, please do this, not that, on my behalf.
Very powerful. Very powerful. Jackie, anything you want to add?
Well, as Ken was saying, the people, when you're driving with other drivers, when you're on the freeway, it can seem like a state of normalcy because that's every day. And I've learned, especially with motorcycles, is some of them will really, on these interstates, will just weave in front and just go really fast. And I just have to stop. It's like, that's somebody's child, or that's somebody's parent, and just bless them that they make it to their destination safely. But to be in there instead of, you idiot, which sometimes they're an idiot, but it's more powerful, I think, to bless someone that they can weave with safety.
I like that. I love that, Jackie. I'm going to think about that the next time I see a motorcycle weaving in and out of traffic. I wanted to bring up a couple of things that are there in the chat box. If we can bring up Ida's comment there, she talks about how she said the prize of love is love. Beautiful words. Anyway, you guys, I just read this and it stunned me. It says not everything that you love will love you back, but love anyway. Thank you so much, Ida. And even Linda talks about connect with the divine spark of the individual and send love. And that's really, I think the more of us that are sending love, and that's part of why we're doing this whole Awaken Your Inner Genius, is it not? I mean, why are we spending every Sunday night to do this? Is to awaken more people to their genius inside. Isn't that so, John?
Yes. I want to comment on what you asked me to. And what I want to do is give our audience an example of something. And I want to take, this is not a political thing, but I'm going to use the office of the presidency as an example of what we're talking about. If you look now, and the attention that office gets, right, from the world and from the people of the United States, and you see the deceit, the lying, the immorality that is taking place in the highest levels of government, which are supposed to be the leaders of the free world, that's where it starts. And that's what's being reflected out into the world, into people. And thank God there's enough people in this country and in the world to see that wrongdoing. But it will correct itself. God will make sure that imbalance will be balanced. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that to people's attention.
Well, and I believe, so you're saying that the political system in general is an unbalance, and I would certainly agree with that. And for many of us, it is focused on our personal journey. And so I'd like to move us over here to page 79. And I'm going to ask Ken to comment on this, but I want to bring up two things, because when you scroll down to one of the parts, the very first part that I highlighted there in yellow, it says God gives us free will to do as we choose in the making of ourselves to our own image. And he gives us all power in his universe to help us break his law if he wishes. But the nature of free will we exercise will become our nature. Let me say that again. The nature of free will we exercise will become our nature. And then it goes on to let us again quote God's message of the Divine Iliad. And I wanted to bring up a major thing there. It says, verily has man free will to control his actions, that my father, mother has given to man as his inheritance. But the control of the reactions to those actions has never had. And then as you scroll down a little bit more, I want you to see what I circled there. I didn't circle it there. Never mind. I keep going. Go up, James. I missed it. What I wanted to bring up to everybody is, do notice that this is one of the first times in the home study course that Walter and Lara Russell referred to father, mother. And this was an important balancing perspective for me, as I've mentioned to you all before. And so I wanted simply to bring that to our attention, because the depth that's in the home study course, and I'd like to ask you all to comment on that. What have you noticed in your years of studying the home study course about the depth that continues to reveal itself?
Yeah, I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface. I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't know about anybody else.
What was your question again, Kimberly?
So my question is this, John. So I'm a student of only 3 years, and I'm on my third time reading the home study course. I find that every time that I open up a unit, I find and discover even deeper meaning behind what was being brought to us. And so for those of you that have been studying this 30, 45, 50 years, even you on your journey, do you find that the nature of this discovery, this expansion of self, continues even though you've been at it that long?
Absolutely.
Oh, without a doubt. Yes, absolutely. It'll continue forever.
Tell me more.
Well, you are trying to become a God-conscious being. You're in the process of evolving a temple body in which the full light of divinity can shine. It's already yours because you are that full light of divinity. You're creating a temple in which it can shine and live. It is a process, and our thoughts are not always balanced. So those imbalanced thoughts cannot be sent to the divine. It is always balanced. They must be recorded in you as an imbalance in your thinking. And if enough are recorded in you as an imbalance, we become diseased, not balanced. And it reflects in our body, in ourselves. So the lesson that the beauty of the home study courses is it's an ever evolving message from their soul to your soul about who you are and what your potential is. And I'm on my way up the mountain. I'm far from reaching the top of it, but I have a better understanding after 50 years than I did. Well, that was all questions and disagreeing my first year. I must be telling the Russells, my God, how wrong can you be? You call yourselves lumens? Well, that's just not fair. That's just, of course we have to get even with those people. How are we ever going to keep them in line if we don't get even with them? All that went on. And over the years, I began to notice as I got older and the decades passed, even happens. John said it. Eventually, those people removed from the mainstream, they're no longer active in their imbalance. And there's a constant effect taking place in humanity that lived and witnessed that imbalance. And it's giving us the desire to not repeat it. So there's an evolution of soul individually and collectively. And it's found constantly in these works. Here I am, 73, going through this, I don't know how many times. And it is lighting up my world. Thank you all for that.
Okay. Thank you. John, you wanted to weigh in?
Yes, what the home study course has allowed for me, Kimberly, is to open the third eye.
Well, okay, so we're used to your cosmic humor, John, but in all fairness, it really is. Keep going, though. I'm not going to let the eye distract me from the lesson that I know is somewhere, the nugget is somewhere here.
No, listen. If you will open the first page of your home study course, and the Russells tell you that this is a personal journey, self-study, lifelong self-study. Now, there's other things I could be doing. All right.
Right.
But I choose to share my knowledge and understanding of this message with those that want to listen. Okay. And so that's why I'm here. And hopefully, through demonstration, I can live the principles that are within this home study course. So every day that you dwell into this home study course, something new, or you'll be reminded of something that is within you.
I love that, John.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Ken. He would like to comment on the mother, father, and then Karen, I'm going to have you wrap up a comment before we take a quick break.
Yeah, the mother, father, took a while until he realized that God must be undivided. So I've said it for years. What is it when you take a male and you take a female and you put them together? What do you get? When you put life and death, you add them together. What do you get? Right? You get endless repetitive cycles. So when you put mother and father together, you get wholeness. You become undivided. God has to be undivided. God has to be both mother and father. But remember, that doesn't mean that God's divided, that there's a male side of God and a female side of God here and there. They're both present at the same time because there's no division. And that was it was God to be undivided. That's how big God is. Now I'm going to give you one thought that was really brilliant to me. Think about creation for a second. If you were the creator, this is a creating universe, not a created. It's not done. It's creating. It's unfolding, right? And if you wanted to have a demonstration, right, of a way to find yourself through love, but not fully reveal yourself, make it a journey. How about creating a man and woman to have that experience? And Jim just said it, because we are all of that divine spark. We are all God, God-like people, human beings. Trying to find that God-like is our mission in life. That God-like where? Within and without. Not just, but if I don't see it within, how am I ever going to see it without? I've heard the term said, as within, so without, right? It was said that's been heard. I don't know. I've heard that parable before. And so I've always learned that, right? If my room is messy, it tells me that I've got a messy mind right now. It could be with cars. It could be anything. As within, so without. So sometimes if I want to know what's going on in the inside, I can look on the outside. And sometimes if I want to know why things aren't going right on the outside, what we're being told is we'll look on the inside. But that father, mother was so important to me. And I'll tell you why. Because I didn't always. It wasn't purpose, because I've been reading this a long time. But I come to realize probably about, I think it was like 2013. So what's that? 11 years ago, maybe. That I had a predominantly male God, and that there was a deep need inside of me because of the lack of feminine in my life as a child to be in touch with the mother side of God. So that doesn't mean that I'm not in touch with both sides, but I must see God as wholeness, mother and father, not just one or the other. And I found myself leaning towards that male side. Maybe it's because of that Our Father and those kinds of things. But I just want to make sure that people, for me, it was really important to get in touch with the female side of God, believe it or not.
So I want to comment on that before I ask Karen to comment, and then we'll take a quick break to give everybody a bio break. It's hard to believe we're already at 8:09. And we typically just go to 8:30 for the broadcast for the conversation and then Q&A. But my gut is telling me for us to go a little longer because this conversation is too important. Is that okay with my fellow panel folks? Are you with me on this? So my heart's telling me to follow the energy here today. I wanted to bring up something about imbalance in relation to what Ken just said. So Ken and I are in a beautiful relationship, and I am learning a lot about this balance of the mother-father. And what I do believe in society is that we don't always look for partners in a balanced relationship. And that also is where a lot of unbalance is that we don't recognize that balance. And so I've been learning a great deal about the power of understanding balance, of decentrating and concentrating, and using some of the philosophies that are within this course. I've also learned the power of having that balance, feminine and masculine, inside of us all. And when you're in a balanced relationship, what happens is you become safe enough to allow that side of you to come out. So for example, I know this is going to be shocking to some of you, I tend to have a very strong masculine side. I know you're surprised, okay? So you can tell me that later. But I haven't been in a safe enough, balanced place enough to be able to have that feminine side of myself come out. And that's been a gracious learning out of all of this. And so I wanted to offer that to anybody who is thinking about their relationships and life in general. It doesn't just have to be romantic. It doesn't have to be business or friendship. Is what kind of balanced relationships do you have in your world that allow you to express that fullness of the mother-father? Karen, final thought before we take a quick 3-minute break so we can continue the conversation.
I thank you for sharing that. And I tend to be very masculine. I grew up with a bunch of brothers, so I'm always first in there to solve a problem and, instead of just yap like they say women do. Anyway, when I think of male, female, which I always think of the guy has the sperm and the woman has the womb. You can't have one without the other. You need each other for creation. No different than a big tree grows and it plants its seed on the earth. Nature shows us in every which way, micro to macro, how things literally operate. And you need the cold for the coolness, but you need the heat of the earth and the warmth of the sun to make things blossom. So I think when we look at Walter Russell's work, he so much brings me back to the wisdom of nature, the wisdom that's embedded within us. And you can't have one without the other. And you can't subdue one without the other. You need both.
Yes, and that is truly the magic for me of the Russell work. So here it is. We're going to take a quick 3-minute break, but before we do, I want to tell you where we're going. We're going to be talking, we're at the bottom of page 79. We're going to go into the grave misconceptions regarding prayer, and we're going to move into 80 and 81. So for anyone who wants to use the break, you can listen to the music and reflect. For others that you need to stand up, get yourself a glass of water as we're going through this, please do. We'll have a quote up, we'll have some music, and we'll see you in 3 minutes. So our 3 minutes passes by quickly. Let us know in the chat box if you like this addition to the broadcast and to the conversation that we have together. We want to create a safe space and a loving space to have these conversations, and we're continuing to evolve and look for the format that works best for all. And I actually do receive emails from some of you, and some of you have even stopped me on the streets to give us feedback about what works. And so let's continue. So if John, if you would, take us down and go to the bottom of page 79 and continue us over here to the top of 80 and talk about this grave misconception regarding prayer. What's important for us to bring up about this? Because people can become rather disillusioned with prayer. And I want to go back. I want to bring up something there at the bottom of page 79, James, that it says, grave misconceptions regarding prayer. Scroll up. And I want to read the first sentence before I hand it over to you, John. It is generally believed among men that one who prays often and with many words loudly and piously uttered is holy among men and much favored of God. But we say that he who finds the ecstasy of happiness in his soul from the giving of love to touch the soul of a despairing neighbor is more holy in God's sight. So I'll hand that over to you, but I witnessed that for so much in my world, where prayer was considered whoever was the loudest and the most adamant there in many of these churches that I went to. And this is part of what actually turned me off of religion for many years and fractured my relationship. And I love this part of the Russell work when they take prayer to another level.
Right. So God is undivided. So words, you uttering words,
Yes,
doesn't go directly to your creator. They're just words. They go out into the physical universe. So until your soul, and that's why we're gently trying to accommodate our folks and gradually having them find that point of stillness. So when your soul is aligned with the universal soul, that's when your prayers are heard. You can stand there and you can thank God at the dinner table, and you can thank God for this and this and that. And if it makes you feel good inside, great. But that prayer, those words do not go to source. So until your soul is aligned with the universal soul, in that stillness is where that communication takes place. So when people go, well, my prayer's not heard, or God does, well, you got to learn how to do it.
Okay. All right, Jim, you want to continue as we go on to page 80?
Yes, I want to point out here too. The concept is without it doesn't come your way without the aid of thine own strong arms, which is directly from the Russells of Divine Iliad, and that's what they're talking about. John and I have been to many events in our 50 years as almost brothers, more than cousins, and we've heard many good, intended, pious people pray endlessly for things, for God to do this, for God to do that for them. I mean, they literally use the words, do this for us. And these people are out of touch with the nature of the divine. Heaven, God, universal one, whatever you want to call it, it is not a hierarchy. There are not degrees to which God allows you to obtain, but you can never know that divine that God is. Universal one, and in the teachings of the Russells, they teach exactly the opposite truth, and all great masters have. You and Creator are one to the degree that you can accept and know that. As you make your way to full realization of that fact, give love and service to all around you. And there's no yeah, buts, or what ifs. Give love and service to those around you. And that is manifesting heaven on earth. Their words are perfect in that. It's perfect. You want to manifest heaven on earth. You want to commune with your Creator. Be that Creator here. Create peace and love here.
And well, let's continue that conversation, Jim, because as we continue down page 80, this is really important, and I believe something that needs to be healed on an individual and collective level. It's about midway down the page of page 80, And it says, when you pray to God, keep going down there, James. Okay, here I have the red mark. So it's that paragraph. When you pray to God saying, God, have mercy upon me, a miserable sinner, you have not prayed to the one God of love, creator of his universe of love, creator of you to manifest his love, for you do not know him. You have but prayed to a God of wrath and fear of your own making, whom you have built in your own image. And so I want to pause for a moment and have us comment on this, because this is something that has humanity held hostage. From what I've understood with my healing, you cannot have fear and love in the same container. And that was always, as a child, one of my biggest misunderstandings of what I was being taught, is how could I have fear and love in that same container? And so I would like to ask some of you that are long-term Russell students about this. And what would you say to somebody who has been held hostage by this fear of this wrathful, vengeful of religion that so many of us have been taught?
I'll
Let
tackle
it go.
that.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
John.
go ahead.
No, my answer is let it go.
People need to understand that thousands of years ago, when religion was created by man to control his fellow man,
Right.
and it has evolved, and the basic concept of that really hasn't changed, and it's all a control thing, a fearful God, that you're a sinner, that you've done something against your creator. Well, let me help those out that are listening, and someday maybe the world will hear these words. The inner gases are God's bridge between mind and matter, and there is nothing any human being can do to upset or to interfere with the love of your creator. So get on with loving yourself, get on with loving existence, love your fellow man, and enjoy this creation that we have. Free yourself.
Free yourself. That is beautifully said.
It's not always as easy as it seems.
Pardon?
Well, I will tell you that.
I'd
It's
like
not
to
like,
comment
oh,
on
just have a figure today and done. It can happen that way, but in most people's world, it does not. It's a constant pursuit, relentless pursuit of that peace inside.
I see that brightness in you, Jackie, as you bring that up. Truly.
I'd like to comment on that,
Please.
because I think it's something we can all relate to. And as John was saying, you got to go back thousands of years to remember. And even today, right now, how many people pray to be able to kill their competitor or their neighboring country and help us to smite our enemies? Like God's gonna take sides or something, like, oh yeah, I'm on the U.S. side or the CCP or the USSR or whatever. Think about how many prayers have been uttered to kill thy enemies and protect my son, but let him kill a bunch of other people, right? Because they're evil. They're not one with you, God, and no one from my life that I've ever met can tell whether God is on or not on. That is an individual journey, and nobody can tell you you're in love or you're not in love, or you're with God or you're not with God. What you can do is the indicators that I found out that when I'm with God, I feel pretty good. I seem pretty kind. And I certainly don't think about God. Make sure, man, I can give this guy who drives, doesn't put on a signal and cuts me off a knuckle sandwich, and make sure that sucker hits him in the right spot so that I don't get hurt and he does, right? I mean, that's that kind of lopsided mentality to realize, well, if God is a God of love, how could I be praying for destruction? How could a God of love no destruction? How could a God of love no wrath, fear? And those are all human conditions. And just like it's been highlighted here, wars are not made by God, they're made by man. All wars are man-made, they're not God-made. Yet man gets in crowds of 30,000, 50,000 people to pray and thinks if you pray collectively enough, it'll somehow stop the war that man created. And God's not that again goes back to that whole creative concept of like, think about God wanted to find God's self, but didn't want to make any shortcuts or any easy ways. But yet we all have that silent, what's deemed in this home study course, that voice within that's talking to every one of us about what to do, where to go, how to treat people, how to not treat people. There's a silent voice, but it's not a voice you necessarily hear in your frontal cortex or even in your ear. It's in your heart. That, you know, I know that I've done something wrong, not by the way that because I don't feel good. So God's given me a register to help me to realize that's not loving, man. When I express love, which I've learned to do, and I believe that I've fallen into love because I gave it. I just kept giving it. I like Mr. Porter over there, who's just, you know, a sap sometimes, you know, but damn, does he say some amazing things. And he is the most loving man you will ever meet. Right? I mean, he just loves everybody. And it's like, dang, you know, I'm working, you know, maybe one day. But the truth of it is that love always feels good. And love, is, I found out for me, is something you always give. You never get. You can't get love. And I'll tell you where I learned that. I learned that with my son. And I'm going to give a little story. I'll wrap it up real quick. I remember asking his mother about a year and a half. He was about a year and a half old. And I was thinking, man, he came out of her belly. So I can see where she's connected to him. But man, here I am a year and a half later. I've taken him on the motorcycle and the dune buggies and all this stuff. And man, he's kind of cries or wants to go to sleep. And it's not very fun. It's like, well, how are we going to have fun? Right. So I went to his mom. I'm like, hey, you know, he came out of your belly. I'm trying to connect to my son. How do I do that? Because, you know, I get bored. I'm just flat out bored when I'm hanging with him. And she goes, that's because you haven't learned to feel the joy of when your son is happy. That should make you happy. And boy, did that resonate with me. Changed my relationship and the way that I related to him from that day forward. I have done nothing but seek his happy. But when he's happy, I'm happy. When he's okay, I'm okay. And when you're okay, I'm okay. It's not about me anymore. And that's when life really started changing for me. I started it started with my son, and then it went into other people. Like, you know what? You can't take anything from me because God's given me all the jewels that I have. I have the keys of the kingdom. So whatever you think you've taken, man, you can't take. It'll just be taken from you. But I know I'm a giver now today. I can call myself a giver. And I would ask anybody on here, can you call yourself a giver? And you know the difference between a giver and a taker? Because I had to learn that I was a taker for a while. And I had to learn to be a giver. And the way I learned to be a giver was to give love unconditionally and be happy when others were happy. See, envy is when you're happy or you get a new car or you get a promotion. And I think, well, where's my new car? Where's my promotion? That's not being happy for other people. That's called envy. That's an ugly emotion. That's a human emotion. That's competing instead of, man, I'm glad. You know what? If you're happy, I'm happy. And when I started learning to really mean that with people, God, this world changed for me. That's it.
Love that. John, you wanted to weigh in?
Yes. As we start to wrap up this session, I wanted to remind people of something. The greatest gift, the greatest example of love was God creating us as sovereign beings. And we need to accept that. And all that God is, we are. And you are unlimited in your power and in your thinking. So embrace that. Try to accept your divinity and know that you've been given the greatest gift of all, and that's life.
Wow, that's said so beautifully well. And you know, as we wrap up here with this particular, you know, I'd hoped that maybe we would go into the next segment, but I'm feeling that we're coming to a good place here, and I want to bring up to everyone on page 81. Is really what they wrapped up here for this particular lesson on 81. It said, well, it will be many centuries before mass man comprehends the idea, which is commonplace thinking, to cosmic man. And if you would just Go, yes, all right. So cosmic man, but you in whom the seed of cosmic thinking is being sown. So that's all of you here in this moment that are on this conversation with us. The seed of cosmic thinking is being sown. You will go to your neighbor and sow it in his consciousness, and he in turn will do likewise, until man in the mass will be transformed from barbaric man, who still crucifies love, to cosmic man, who is love.
Wow, that's powerful. Ooh.
Very, very powerful. And so I know we've had a couple of comments here in the chat box. It seems like what's appropriate at this moment, we're going to have our Q&A session like we normally have, but we have the first iteration of another gift from Karen. Karen's been very, very busy. So, Karen, before we show what you've started to pull together for Unit 2, and we're just now starting Unit 2, so some of the items will be ahead. What we'd like to get in the practice of is showing your visual journey of Unit 2, and we'll do that the whole month so that people can begin to unfold it. And after that, please know, before we finish up tonight, we're also going to have a student spotlight on one of our students, Elaine Parks. I'm going to bring up some things that she's working on, and Ken will lead us in a final meditation at the end of our session here today. But Karen, before we roll this visual journey, whereas if anybody needs to take a break or if they want to just sit in meditation as they enjoy your words as we go into Q&A, what was on your heart as you were creating this particular gift?
For me, this was kind of going through basically lesson 1 of chapter 2, and it were the things that sort of stuck out to me, and the kind of the punctuation point. So this is for me more of a recap for everybody of the things that we've talked about, and just to bring some of the points home.
Okay, so everybody get ready to enjoy this beautiful gift from Karen, a look at Unit 2. Wow.
Great job, Karen.
That was awesome.
It just kind of the recap of this one for me. That was it always reinforces.
Poetry in motion is what I see there, and literally it brought some of those elements brought me to tears. And what I want everybody who's watching to understand is that while we do prep, we do not tell each other exactly what to bring out on each page. What I find so beautiful about what Karen, she literally is tapping into what is meant to be brought out. And so Karen, you would have thought that you and I sat down and talked about which comments we should bring out in that video, and we did not.
No, we did not.
We did not.
No.
So that's certainly the divine at work there. Any comments to Karen's video from our seasoned students before we open it up to Q&A?
Well, one comment. The one thing that impressed me in this segment was the diversity in it. Is the amount of where we went from being pious, we went to going to wars, to how we need to pray and how it affects our body. So that imbalance of that exchange this had a big breath. So it was kind of
I
interesting.
wanted to make a Russillian comment on Karen's lovely earrings.
Oh, they keep dangling, don't they?
And she may not realize what she has done, but she is true to form, because the cube weight field boundaries are the magnetic, which is the female. So how cool.
You know what? I'm going to do that next. When Kimberly said to me, Karen, I've got this picture. The cube came up, the sound came up, and you know, John, you're the one who gave me that gift of the cube. So that's coming next. It was like, okay, I can't do that one this time. I'll do it next time.
So for those of you that are new to this body of work, we want to certainly invite you to get your own copy of the home study course. You will see the link below. We work closely with philosophy.org, the University of Science and Philosophy. They are in full support of what it is we're doing here. Everyone here has certainly been interacting and supporting what all this message is about. I have such gratitude for what John has been giving with his time, what Jim and Jackie have been giving with their time, with so much that's going on, and with Ken and with Karen. Please know that we practiced for 4 months before we ever went live on a broadcast. This has truly been a gift of love. And so I want to open it up for questions from our audience. This is not something that's required. We simply offer this as a gift to stay on for a few more minutes. You are welcome to ask a question about the message that was here today. We're in Unit 2, Lesson 5. If you have a question about any of us individually, feel free to just place it in the chat box and you can direct it to us individually. I know that some of you relate to certain panel members. We are going on a journey here together. And that's what we want to be here to serve here. So Linda Robinson says she loves the home study course. We have had a few people reach out to say they would possibly like to be guest on the broadcast, and we are looking at ways to possibly have that happen at some point. I know that we had a question from Darcy that needed a little more explanation here. But in the meantime, I'm going to go back and look for that. Are there any other questions, or panel members, questions you would like to ask each other as we're waiting for questions to come through?
I have a question for Karen. Is that video made available to share?
I will have to ask James that, but yes, it will be available to share.
Okay. Yeah.
Once we make some updates and changes, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an iterative, a merging project as Karen is learning each week. So yeah, we'll be sharing that. But I know Karen well enough to know Karen is on the West Coast. We're on the East Coast, and she works like all night long. So I'll like wake up and Karen has been creative genius all night long. And so I know that she's going to end up changing or adding something by this time tomorrow.
Possible. But you know, Kimberly, does you mind me saying that, you know what, you and I and James and Ken will be at Tesla Tech.
Yeah.
So if you want to mention that, I'll let you. But
please,
yeah.
I was going to bring that up here on today. So Karen, I am so honored to be there to support and support Karen. She will be speaking at Tesla Tech. I will be there simply supporting her. We're doing this together, yes, but she is the main one because I think Karen is a conceptual genius when we talk about Awaken Your Inner Genius. And Tesla Tech is August 7th through the 11th. We'll place the link in the chat box. James will also be at Tesla Tech. Ken will be at Tesla Tech. And so we are excited about doing that. And we'll actually have a booth there for Awaken Your Inner Genius. And so, Karen, why don't you tell people a little bit that they can even log in online?
if they go to teslatech.live, they will be able to find the whole lineup of 28 speakers. And since I've done Science to Sage magazine for quite a few years, half of the speakers are coming from the magazine. There's some of my favorite people in the water, fusion, technology. So there's a lot of extraordinary people, a lot of fun people. It's a very intimate and fun event. So it's something where you can actually sit and talk with us. And it's just one of my favorite conferences.
All right, love that. And while we're waiting for a few more questions to come in, and panel, let me know if you have some questions. I do want to make sure that we mention a student spotlight. So part of what's been so impressive to me with the Russell work is that I see so many people out there doing some amazing work. And I know we actually have Elaine on here. She did not know that we were going to do this tonight. It was already planned before. And I'm going to ask if John would even speak to this as well. But I wanted to focus on something that Elaine Park is doing. And you'll see right there that she is doing 12 habits for all of us. And it is an entire movement to be able to bring more peace to the world. You can go to the website, check out everything that they're doing. They are having a meeting tomorrow night, their next Zoom call. If you'll see the button at the top, you can click join our community. And they do their Zoom meetings once a month. And they have a whole initiative about how to bring more peace to the world and these 12 habits for all of us to make a better place. And so, John, you have met Elaine, you've heard her speak. I'll have Jim, if you want to chime in. What do you want to tell everybody about just the fact that Elaine, no matter what season that she's in life, she's out there trying to live the message of the Russells?
Well, I can tell you, without giving away her age, but when she spoke, I believe it was 2022, maybe 23, I'm not sure. But my God, you talk about energy and dynamic. And those 12 habits and the program that she's put together. And she has done more good in the world through her own understanding of this message. And so she's trying to make it easy. And she's trying to reach the younger generation. She's trying to reach children as early as possible to use the word God and divided and undivided and so on, to educate them early on. And so what she's doing is wonderful, and my hat's off to her. And so if you want to interact with her, please join her in her efforts.
Jim, anything you want to add to that?
She's an amazing human being, and she has literally spent her entire life living the message by giving it out in her manner, in her way to humanity. And the idea that she has spent so much focus on giving love and service and direction to children is so mind expanding and heart expanding for me, because she has been a voice in the wilderness to some sense, because children have been thoroughly educated in feelings and emotions, but they have not been educated in how they can control those things and how they can build a beautiful world.
Well, in her latest, she is working to try to have 200 mastermind groups around the world that are for world peace. So this woman has an ambitious agenda. And for any of you, I want to speak to those of you that sometimes are spending much of your life at home, and you've wondered about what kind of value you can bring to the world. What a beautiful nugget from the Russell work is that when you really do begin to study this, you cannot help but feel compelled to want to re-give. So when it's given to you, you want to re-give. And this becomes a second nature to you. And if you have any interest in this whole notion of peace, world peace, join and see what she's up to. And it's really quite profound. So any other final comments or questions? I'm not going to force us to stay on longer. Jackie, you have a thought.
I just want, like with Russell terms, she's putting love in action that can, that can only be re-given continuously. And I'm excited to see what the next generation will unfold with the schools that are participants in this. And also, my understanding, Elaine has a really profound experience that brought her to the palace.
Yes.
So that
Very
interesting.
Very
looks-
profound.
She's got a great book out. It's like called The Habit of Unity: 12 Months to a Stronger America. That we
She's
can all
got a lovely book. There's lots of amazing work there. So that's part of what we'd like to do, is to spotlight not only her, but other folks and other people. We've already got our spotlights coming up. So we're giving the website. Elaine says, give the website so they can sign up for tomorrow. So we will drop that in the chat box, Elaine. She had no idea we were actually doing that here today. Any other questions that we have either in the group, or does anybody here on the panel have a question for each other?
all good.
All right. Well, then what I want to bring up is that here we are for next week. So next week, for those of you that have your copy, we want to encourage you, always drink in this love. You can always re-listen to these broadcasts. But what we do want to encourage you is that for next week, what we're doing is we are doing Unit 2, Lesson 6. Now, Unit 2 is a pretty big unit. And so please understand that when we showed you earlier what we're going to be doing, we chose to take 5 Sundays. We cheated a little bit here at the last Sunday here in June, because there's a lot to cover with the illuminations that are coming up. And so Lesson 6 will be diving a little bit more into prayer scientifically explained, and then the following weeks talking about the illuminations of Walter and Leo. So a gracious thank you to everyone here this evening for our broadcast. We're sending you all much love. We'll send you off with a quote and some music, and we look forward to the beauty and the love that you'll be bringing into the world. Until next Sunday.
Mute your mics.